everyone. Welcome back. If you're here, go ahead and say hi to us in the chat. Welcome. I'm going to give everybody a couple minutes to just log in and get themselves settled. It looks like people are still joining. Hey, Tiffany, great to see you back again today.
Got people from Maine and North Carolina. Hi, everybody.
So many. This is coast to coast. As everybody's kind of getting logged in, looks like we got 39 people already. This is awesome. Go ahead and say hi in the chat. I always love it when people blow up the chat. And on that note, wanted to let you know, if you do have a question throughout the presentation, how many of you found the QA icon to the left of the chat? If you want to throw in an emoji saying, hey, yeah, I found that. I got it. Your little emoji button's awesome. I see a thumb. If you haven't found your reactions, that's that little happy yellow smiley face. If you have a question, I'm going to ask you to put it in there. I'll put a post in here so you can see it highlight. This way we can keep track. Jennifer has space in her presentation. She's going to make sure she answered your questions. So keep them coming if you think of something as she's chatting with you. We'll make sure to get those answered. Feel free to blow up her screen with lots of reactions as if something resonates with you. But without further ado, it is 11:02 my time, or 2 past the hour, I should say, since we're all in different time zones. Go ahead and kick this off. Welcome. This session is From Classroom to Boardroom, Mastering the Art of Evaluating Learning Impact in the Corporate World. And our talented presenter today here is a senior instructional designer, Jennifer Antoon. I just asked you about this. Aubrey. No, that's not right. I did it again. Aubrey. Got it. Okay. Good. My brain went blank here for a moment. And she is a senior instructional designer at Alaris Life. So stay tuned. She's got a wonderful presentation for us, and let her take it away.
Thank you, Abby. Welcome, everybody. My name is Jennifer Aubrey. I am certified from ATD in Evaluating Learning Impact, and I have been working in corporate L&D for about 6 years now. I actually started as a teacher in TESOL, which is teaching English to students of other languages. And I worked in the university setting. You can see some of the places I've been at the bottom of my slide here. And when I transitioned, I had so many skills that helped me that I still use today. And so I hope during this conference, you're able to identify what your transferable skills are and that this has been a big help to you. But today, I'm here to help you with a skill that wasn't so easy or effortless for me. It's a very important skill, especially in today's climate, today's job market. So I'm going to equip you with a strong foundation of proven measurement and evaluation techniques that you're going to need to showcase the effectiveness of your learning and development projects in a corporate setting. All right. So I'm going to make sure you get something of value out of this session. In this session, you will understand how to demonstrate the impact of your projects by mapping the impact. You'll be able to start identifying what metrics, we also call these KPIs or key performance indicators, to measure. I'll show you a list of different methods to collect data that you can go on your own and research later. And lastly, you're all here because you are eager to learn more, so I'm going to assign you homework. For your homework, I'll lead you to the most popular evaluation models and some resources where you can dive deeper. And for the purposes of today's session, I probably won't reference those models, but I'm going to give you the foundations that apply to anything. Okay? So I'd like to start by gauging your current comfort level with evaluating learning impact. So if you could take a minute and answer a poll question for me. It is anonymous. I ask that you answer honestly. And there's a reason why I'm asking you this. We're going to return back to it at the end of the session and
Hey,
see if
Jennifer,
there was any progress. So
can I pause you here? I don't think our slides are moving with you. We still see the main.
Oh, they are. Oh my gosh. Let me see what's going on. Thank you for catching me there, because that would have been, I know I had a quick issue right before we started, making sure they were advancing. You should see that, but it's not. I'm going to switch the way that I'm sharing really quick, if you guys don't mind. Thank you so much for your patience.
And not to worry, because Jennifer, we will make sure that the slide deck is shared later. So not to worry if you think you missed something you didn't. You're gonna have recordings and slide presentations for later. So stay tuned.
There we go. You should see, we see movement, right?
Definitely do.
Okay, so don't worry, you didn't miss much yet. The important stuff is coming. So let me publish that first poll I was referencing. Publish. Poll successfully published and visible to attendees. Do you all see this? It should be a statement that says, I am confident in demonstrating the impact of my learning solutions. Thank you for those upvotes. Be honest, I'm probably imagining a lot of you are going to say, no, I'm not yet. That's why I'm here, Jennifer. So if you could please answer for me so we can get some data, because that's what we're here to learn today. We're here to learn how to collect some data we can use. And I just found the button to show you the answers on your screen. I think you were getting some votes. 8, 9, 10 people are voting. You've got more than that on this call, so I'm hoping we can get a few more votes in. And I'm seeing a trend leaning a little bit towards neutral and disagree, right? And that's okay, that's expected. But like I said, the purpose of this is to help me collect some data. So thank you all. I'm going to close this in 3, 2, 1. Send your last vote if you haven't voted yet. All right. We're going to return to that shortly. So let's start by comparing how we evaluate impact in an educational setting and in a corporate one. So if you could post in the chat for me some examples of right now, how are you currently evaluating that in an educational setting? How are you currently evaluating that your students are learning something? What are some ways that you do that? Quizzes, surveys, thank you, Angelica. Observation, great. Formative and summative assessments, knowledge checks, surveys, awesome. Thank you so much for participating with me here. Yeah, when I was a teacher, I remember all the ways I used to formally evaluate students. It was things like quizzes, tests, essays, portfolios, presentations, discussion boards, posts, surveys, right? And what I was evaluating was if there was a knowledge transfer. I'm going to call this capabilities for the purposes of today. Was there learning that happened? And also, a lot of the time we're trying to get at if there's behavioral change, if they can apply that learning and have a change in their performance, right? So at corporations, we also use tests to evaluate knowledge transfer or capabilities, but we might also use surveys or questionnaires. We might use things like simulations, practicals, or observations, which is a way to get concrete evidence that people are performing differently. We might use action plans, which help us when learners are the ones who ultimately decide how they will personally apply their learning. We use things like focus groups, which are like interviews where we dig deeper with learning populations. And lastly, probably the most important, we use data sources at the organization. So oftentimes there are dashboards and reports monitoring data already, right? Things that are important to the business. Or if not, we can create one so we can start monitoring it. So I don't want to go into too much detail here about these methods, but you'll get this presentation at the end of the event and you can use this slide to do more research if you're interested. But all of these things help us to go one step further in the corporate world and evaluate business impact. So we'll need to demonstrate if there was learning that happened, capabilities, if they were able to apply that learning on the job, right? Job performance impact. And lastly, and most importantly, how that job performance impact affects the business. So this framework across the bottom, these 3 words, I want you to remember this for the rest of the day here, forever actually, because this is a very important way to link the impact of your training to the impact on the business. You're connecting the dots with this framework, okay? So I want you to remember that, super important. We'll keep returning to this throughout today. So what do I mean by business impact? Business impact metrics can be so many different things. I threw a bunch here on the screen, but there's so many more, so I'm just going to read through a few of them. It could be revenue. Maybe we're earning more money because of your learning intervention. Maybe costs were reduced. Maybe increased sales. Maybe you taught something that helped people be more productive and efficient, and so you actually saved them time, and they can now put that time towards something else that's important. I worked at a corporation where we did a deep fat fryer training, and the purpose of that was to help avoid injuries using a frying, a big machinery that was pretty dangerous. Reduced waste. A big one on a lot of people's minds right now is employee retention and turnover. So that is, how happy are employees and are they staying at our company? Employee engagement and job satisfaction. Here's an interesting one: reduced litigation. So by learning something new, are they able to change their behaviors and put us less at risk for being in legal matters? So I want to have us return to the chat and do some brainstorming. Think about companies that you would love to work for. And if you worked for them, what could you imagine that they might need to measure? So I'll give you a first example. Let's think about Starbucks. If we all worked for Starbucks and we were asked to work on all different kinds of learning projects, what are some business impact measures that they might be interested in seeing us move the needle on? Let's see if we can get any guesses and ideas here. Customer loyalty. Oh, that's a good one. Reduction time for making drinks. I love that. How efficient are they making the drinks? Community engagement. That would be it, right? A lot of companies right now are interested in their employees and their level of satisfaction and happiness. So is there a sense of community? I'm not sure if that's what you meant, Nicole, but let me know in the chat and we can talk through this later if you meant something different from that. And then Emily, more coffee sales. Yeah, that's probably the one that comes first and foremost to mind. They're interested in selling coffee, right? So thank you all for participating. Those are some great examples. The most important question, though, I want you to think about is, out of all these measures, how do you know what to measure? Right? There are so many things listed here. So it's important to ask questions, lots and lots and lots of questions. Ask the requester of the project and anyone involved what's important to them, because they usually have a reason for coming to you and asking for support. So if you ask enough questions, they'll tell you, hey, we're trying to solve this problem. And always remember that you're creating a learning intervention. It's not just information and content and PowerPoints and videos that you're making. You are improving the skills of employees and then therefore impacting the business. So let's put this all together with an example, and then I'll pause for a moment and we can talk about any questions you have right now. You see our framework across the top: capabilities, what learning has happened; job performance, How is that learning translated to the way people do their jobs differently? And how has that impacted the business, hopefully in a positive way, right? So we're going to decide what we will measure and how we will measure it for all three of these things, because remember, we can't do one without the other. We have to create that chain link. So in this example, think about customer service teams, for example, a call center. Okay, I created a wonderful training intervention, and now I want to demonstrate its impact. So the capabilities I want to evaluate are, did my learners learn our company's customer service protocols? And I'm going to evaluate that by giving them all a quiz. And so if they pass this quiz, that shows me that they got it, right? And the idea is that if they learn these protocols, then back on the job, they can do certain things, right? Maybe they're able to answer the call with our correct greeting that we require of them. Maybe they will now ask for contact information in case we get disconnected, which is what our business is requiring them. Or maybe they are now able to satisfy disgruntled customers. Okay, that's what was on the quiz, that's what was in the training. So to evaluate that they're doing that, I might do an observation. So I might go to them at work on the job and listen to them on a call and observe them with a rubric. Did they do all of these things, and did they do them appropriately the way that we expect of them? And lastly, in doing all of that, the business impact I'm personally interested in is, did our customer service rating go up? And because this is an important metric to the customer service team, they're already regularly monitoring this, right? So I can go and ask them and say, hey, can I look at your dashboard and see some numbers? I want to see the training group's customer service rating before I train them. And then a few months later, I'm going to go back and look at that number on the dashboard and see if it has improved or not. Okay, so that's an example of putting this all together. And we'll do some together where I'm going to ask you to help me fill out this chart. But I want to take a minute now to pause and see if we're all good. Does this make sense? Oh, let me see. There are a few things in the chat. Not every organization is concerned. I think there's Starbucks. I was thinking about Starbucks and how, yeah, maybe I should have come up with another company, right? What do we think? Some thumbs up? Are we all on board? One thumbs up. Two thumbs up. All right. Sounds good. So let's keep going. And then maybe we'll have some more questions once I get you to practice without me. So I want to share some research with you. The ROI Institute conducted a study with 96 CEOs from Fortune 500 and other private companies and asked them to rank what measures L&D is taking that have the most value to them. And really interestingly, it was not what learning and development teams were currently doing. It was things that are a little different. So I'm going to share with you what they ranked were the top 3 measures that were important to them that their learning and development teams were able to demonstrate. So I'm going to count down to make it more dramatic. We're going to start with number 3. Number 3 is awards. Are your learning and development programs winning awards, right? Number 2 is return on investment. How much money is returned back? And number 1, drum roll please, impact. That's what we're learning today, right? You're learning the fundamentals of demonstrating impact, of the learning, of that impact on the job performance, and the impact on the business. So this is something really valuable, and I'm thrilled to be able to share this with you today. So in addition to this study, the field has shown overall just a significant interest in evaluation. So qualitative data analysis is becoming increasingly important. Organizations that have comprehensive measurement and evaluation have bigger budgets. They are viewed as a trusted advisor I've also heard the term, I lost it now, trusted advisor or high value partner to the business. And also, in times of workforce reductions, this skill can just be one more tool in your toolkit to help make you a more valuable team member and potentially, keep you in an organization during those scary cuts that have been happening. So this is an important skill that you're learning. And like I said, we're going to do some practice to get you going with this. So, all right, here is a real world situation that you might encounter. And for all my current learning and development practitioners on the call with me, you might laugh as we go through this because it is similar to something you've probably heard. Okay, and let's think through what you might measure. Remember, capabilities, job performance, and business impact. So let me click through here. So my boss came to me, for example, and says, "Hi, Jennifer. The housekeeping director reached out to me recently and they need a training for their teams on making beds. Can you get started on that?" And I didn't add this, but it usually says, "as soon as possible, we need tomorrow." And I might say something like, "Sure, I can. Thanks, boss. I'll start investigating." And so I'll go to the housekeeping director and I'll say, "Hi, housekeeping director. I heard you had a training request. Can you tell me what's been going on?" And that director might say, "We need a housekeeping training as soon as possible for bed making. Here's the process. I'll email it to you. When can you get it back to us?" And I would say, "I have a few questions for you first. How are they currently doing making the beds? What should the beds actually look like? What's the gap here that we're missing?" And the director might say, "Well, the problem actually isn't their bed making. It's that many of our housekeepers have been getting back injuries." So here in this example, by asking questions, I'm uncovering more details and information that wasn't initially given. And so I might say something like, "I'm so sorry to hear that. So we want to make sure we prevent injuries by following the most ergonomic way to make a bed." And of course, this conversation would continue as I gather more and more details about the situation. However, we have enough where I think we can start drafting our impact map, right? What learning would need to happen? What job performance training might need to happen? And how is that going to impact the business? So I'm going to stop talking for a minute and look at our chat and see what do we think for capabilities? What learning impact do we want to see? And how might we evaluate it? And I see a question that we'll go back to in a moment. Anybody? What do we think? Let's make a guess. What might our housekeeping team need to learn so that they prevent injuries? Awareness of their body, types of movements, posture, absolutely. The right way of making a bed. Great, thanks everybody. Stretching, right, we would need to ask some questions and know exactly what, but we could start drafting our impact map and we could say, let me go to my slide so I can click, maybe the ergonomically correct way of making the bed. And any guesses for how we could evaluate that? Safety standards, yeah, right, June. How might we evaluate that our learners actually learn this? What would you do? Observation, Yeah, we'll get to that for job performance. But what about just that they learned it? So if I was in a conversation with them and wanted to make sure that they knew what our procedures were, survey. Yeah. I put for my example, when I drafted this, I put like an online quiz, an online test, right? I'm gonna maybe for this, I'll send them a e-learning module where they'll watch a video and they will take a test to show me that they learned the correct procedure. And then a lot of you jumped ahead to job performance. So job performance, they need to be able to show that they can make the bed. Maybe things like how to bend, how to lift, how to carry, push, and pull correctly. And like a lot of you said, maybe I can evaluate this with a practical or an observation. I can watch to see, are they doing this the way that we taught them? And so for business impact, let's post in the chat. What is the impact of all of this training that we're going to spend time and money creating? Reduced injury report. Ding, 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 ding. Reduced time off from injury. Less injuries. Great job, Adalia. Fewer sick days. Happy housekeeping employees. I mean, look, there's so many things. What I put here is reduced back injuries and then maybe workers' comp avoided. So maybe we save money because we're not paying out, for so many people off. And I'm going to be able to track that and demonstrate that by looking at our incident report. Because remember, metrics that are important to the company are often already being tracked. And I'm going to check how much money we pay out. So great job. A lot of you posted things that I didn't even think of to put down here for business impact. So there's many different ways you can go about this. I think the important part is making sure that you are creating a line of impact and then going and getting the numbers to show it. So what do we think? Do we want to try one more? One person does. 2 people. Awesome. It's different not being able to see you all, so I'm relying on your reactions. All right, let's try one more, and this one's a little different. So the VP of operations came to me and says, "Hi, Jennifer. I've been looking at what other companies are offering their employees, and we need new orientation for all job roles. This is so important." Right? Like a lot of leaders see things that are happening at other companies and they want that. And so I might say, great idea. Orientation programs set our new hires up for success. Other than ensuring they are current, is there any reason in particular this caught your attention now? And the VP may say something like, yes, there is so much turnover right now. We need to make sure our people feel equipped to do their jobs and they want to stay. So I might say something like, can you show me our current turnover percentages? I'd like to see which roles are the most at risk so we can prioritize them. And the VP might say, sure, I'll have someone send it over. You'll notice our servers in the dining room are turning over, meaning they're leaving, they're quitting, they're not staying with us the most. So I might say, great, thanks. These teams may need more support, meaning training might not solve this entirely, but it is a great start. And of course, the conversation would continue. So everyone wants the shiny new thing. Yes, Jesse, it's so true. And Dawn, you're absolutely right. This wouldn't just be an orientation problem. There would be all kinds of things that you would want to recommend to support this problem. And you would, of course, need to go in and talk to the servers and do a decent analysis. But for the sake of the practice, let's pretend that orientation would be a good value add to at least solving part of this problem. So if we think about capabilities, what these servers in the dining room might need to learn, if we're thinking about job skills, can anybody guess what we might want them to learn? Let's say we go and we talk to all the teams. What are we going to find out? Stress management, taking orders. Yeah. What else? What's important for a server in a dining room to know to do their job well? Working with customers, absolutely. Clarity on expectations. The system they use, oh yeah, tech. Good customer service, customer interaction, how to put an order into the system, all of those things, right? And we would really identify this by doing a needs analysis. But for the sake of the practice, we're going to pretend we talked to people and we learned they need to know serving protocols, customer service, and food handling and safety. So how are you going to plan to evaluate that they learned this? A quiz. Yeah. Absolutely. That's the easiest thing. You know, that's probably the most popular thing we do nowadays is we give them a quiz or a test. All right, so if we look at those capabilities, how is that going to translate to on the job? I'm going to click through because we've mentioned a lot of them already. So if you learn the serving protocols, ideally that would mean now you know how to take an order the way that the company expects you to. You know how to do things like serving the meals the way that the company expects you to. So there's so many more things. Those are just a few examples. Now, how might we plan to evaluate that their job performance has improved? So they passed the test, but does that mean necessarily that they're changing their behavior at work? The managers can tell you. I love that. You're absolutely right. But what about qualitative data? Surveys, observing them on the job. We have some people even jumping to business impact, turnover rate decreasing, observation. Yeah, so I would evaluate if their performance changed with an observation or a practical, but you could also survey their managers. You could also do a focus group with their managers or with customers. You're absolutely right. So there's a lot of different ways that we can attack this. The most important thing is that you have a plan to do it and to collect the data. And lastly, you know, business impact. This is a little bit of a adapted situation because this isn't going to solve everything, right? But the idea is that this would support a reduced turnover and increase job satisfaction and engagement. And those are things that maybe HR is tracking and they have a dashboard on their turnover rates. Or a lot of companies now do engagement surveys on a quarterly basis. How satisfied are your team members? So that's something that you could look at to get some qualitative data. So thank you everybody for practicing with me. I think we had a question that I want to go back to before I move on. Someone had asked, is this action mapping? And this isn't action mapping, this is impact mapping. They're both part of the design process and analysis process, right? But this is really the plan you're going to make to decide what data you're going to collect and how you're going to collect it. And That's really important, and it's important that you do that from the beginning. And I think it's actually my next slide. So let me see if I jump to my next slide here. Yep, here we go. So things to remember. You're going to want to create this data plan from the very beginning. It's difficult to get to the end of your project and then go backwards and say, oh, wait, now I need to go collect data, because maybe you didn't train on the correct things, or maybe you find out that it didn't actually impact the business. So know what you're measuring, how you will measure it, who you're going to partner with, and then when you're going to go in and collect it. I was always taught you go 3 months in after the learning intervention was implemented. If anyone knows anything that's more current than that, let me know. But I was always taught that 3 months is your time period. That's a good amount of time to let the learning take its course. So secondly, remember to map the impact. I can't claim results that I didn't create a trail back to my learning intervention. So for example, if I can't show that people have even taken my training or used my learning resource, then I definitely can't say that customer service rating went up because of it, right? So that's the importance of this trail of connecting the dots of maybe you can't 100% say that all of that improvement was due to you, but you can definitely show that you were a part of it. Partner with the business. So key metrics are often already being monitored. The last conference presentation was all about building relationships and building rapport with people you work with. That's true. It's so important. If you build relationships with your subject matter experts and other business partners, then all you have to do is ask to get the data that you need. And lastly, keep learning and experimenting. So this field requires you to stay up to date with approaches, technology, so much more. Test out different approaches and see what is comfortable and works best for you. I have tried quite a few things and quite a few different evaluation frameworks. And this impact mapping approach I find to be the most sustainable to implement. And again, you're not going to be able to do this with every single project, but for the ones that you identify that you're going to be able to map the impact, it ends up being a very easy process to follow and repeat successfully. So remember, you don't create content, you don't create information or PDFs, you help drive business impact. And that is a valuable thing to do. So make sure that you are demonstrating it. And so I promised you homework. I'm going to help you out and lead you in the right direction. Again, like I said, I'll share these slides with anyone who's interested. I'll put it in that feed that we have that looks like a little newspaper at the top of the AirMeet site. But here are some next steps if you want to keep learning about evaluating learning impact. I have an article here. I have some models and methodologies you can Google. And then if you want to dive deeper, some information about data analytics that will help you. And because you stayed until the end, I'm going to give you a bonus toolkit. So this is by no means a comprehensive list of things all things learning and development, right? But it's a great start for things you can start researching and getting comfortable with. And it's something I wish that I had when I started in this field. So this is my gift to you, and I wish you all the best. And I have one more poll I would like to do with you. So remember that question I asked you at the beginning? And I said, how confident are you in demonstrating the impact of your learning interventions? And it kind of leaned towards neutral or disagree. Well, hopefully you feel slightly more confident about some of the skills we talked about today, but I'd like to see if there's a trend in either direction now that you have listened to me for about 40 minutes already. Strongly disagree. So we got to talk. Send me your information afterwards, and we're gonna talk and get you to move in the other direction. So we only have about 15 votes, 16. But what I can now do is I have data that I can compare to my pre-data. And although this isn't observation or like data I collected from a practical, it is data that gets at that job performance improvement because I'm asking you about your confidence in your ability to do something different on the job. So this is kind of a tip of a way you can get at qualitative data if you're stuck. And
I think there's a bit of
so this is a little
lag.
trick that I use in situations.
I don't think we caught what you said. There's a big lag in your response. I don't know if it did it for anybody else, but I couldn't catch half of what you said. Did anyone else have that problem?
Oh, no. Let me check the...
Oh, I think you froze again.
Let me check the chat and see.
I'm seeing some thumbs up here. Yeah.
One sec. Lagging a little bit. Okay, how about now? Any better?
That sounds better on my end.
Oh, bummer. Yeah. Well, thank you for bearing with me, but I'll just repeat what I said. A sneaky tip on how you can get at job performance impact without necessarily observing or doing a practical. You know, I'm asking you your confidence in your ability to do a job skill. So for any projects where you're stuck or it's kind of an intangible thing that you're measuring, this is a little trick to get you qualitative data. And you can say, my population of 500 learners demonstrated a 50% increase in their confidence in their abilities to execute something. And I actually did this. I'll tell you a story because we have some time left. I actually did this with meteorologists on board the cruise ships. So I couldn't actually go in this certain circumstance and observe them avoiding a storm or, you know, taking the ship to safety out of heavy waves and difficult, you know, weather. But I evaluated their confidence in doing it, and it showed a significant increase. And so that was a valuable impact metric that I used to show my boss. I used it to show the business, and it meant something because that's not what all L&D practitioners are doing. So like I said, this is a valuable skill that's going to help you show that what you're doing has an impact because what we do is important. So we need to start demonstrating it. Let me close this poll so I can see some more.
Definitely had a couple questions in the chat as well, Jennifer, but I know you mentioned your poll here. Do you have time to stick around and chat at a table after this if people have additional questions beyond our time? Okay, yeah. So we've got a couple questions in the chat, but if you haven't posted yours or you just want a chance to connect with Jennifer at a table, definitely check out the lounge area once we close this session out. But I definitely want to spend some time here on the couple questions that we have just so we can get those answered in the main session. So we had a question from Kendra. I'm curious to know, what does a deliverable for an evaluation plan look like? Are you expected to produce a document, a presentation?
So it's something I can share with you, actually. Maybe I'll post that as well. I create a data collection plan, but to be honest, it's more for my personal use. I've never had a manager ask me to show them my data collection plan. You know, a lot of times they don't even know you're doing it. They just want to make sure that you are working on your projects and you're doing a good job. I've had a deliverable to show my colleagues before to help them be able to do this kind of work. So really, what it looks like is just a table, and you can use what I've moved to, because I've been doing this for a little while now. I moved to just that chart that I showed you on one of those slides where it says capabilities, job performance, business, and then the second line of like how I'm going to measure it. That's what you could use if you were, for example, going to put this in a proposal for a senior leader. A more complicated data collection chart would say, who will you contact to get this data? Who's going to collect the data? When will you collect it? What method will you use to collect it? But again, I think the primary purpose of it is more for your planning, right? Like no one really looks at my design documents other than a proposal. So I hope that answers your question.
Got it.
From Kendra.
From Kendra. And definitely stop by, Kendra, if you've got time to go to a table. Definitely got some more time here. Karen also had a question. I was wondering about other methods of evaluation other than quizzes and tests. Not everyone does as well on tests, and being put on the spot isn't a prerequisite for the job.
Yeah, so great question, Karen. But remember, quizzes and tests don't have to be these high stakes, scary things. I've done a lot of the time, I think our actual best practice at one of the companies I worked for was you get unlimited amount of tries on the quiz. It is not tracked, until you submit your final one. And it's really just practice. In addition to being that final method of evaluation, right? When you submit the one that, of course, shows you passed. But so it doesn't need to be this formal thing like pencils down. It could be a tool to facilitate the learning. But also think about things like scenarios with decision trees. And you have to choose a path and see what happens. I mean, to evaluate knowledge transfer, my go-to is pretty much a quiz or a test, but I'm curious. I mean, everyone else post in the chat and let me know, is there another way that you evaluate knowledge transfer outside of a quiz? For me, that's my go-to. And I would add that like your quizzes can be in an LMS, a learning management system. It doesn't need to be in front of other people, in front of your manager. I see another one from Karen.
Yeah.
What are the most important skills you need to become a rockstar evaluator? I would say asking questions, because in the two scenarios I showed you, you may have noticed that when I started probing, I got more details and more, not that they weren't being honest before, but I uncovered more information that was really valuable to me. So all of a sudden they're saying now why they needed a bed making video versus when they came to me, oh, Jennifer, we need 3 bed making videos for our 3 different processes by next week. Oh my gosh, we need them now, right? And a lot of people might jump to do it because they want to be helpful, right? And I know how to make a video. Like, that sounds like fun. Let's go do it. But if you take a minute and stop and kind of think, okay, why are they asking me this, right? They're not just doing it because they're bored and they need a new project to work on. Something happened and I want to figure out what it was. And so being very curious, that's my Ted Lasso reference, be curious and ask lots of questions, and it's going to help you know what to evaluate. And then the second skill I would add to that is just test and experiment with different methods, because I started following Kirkpatrick and the ROI methodology, and it's this 6-level framework, which you'll see when you do your homework. And it was very detailed and took a lot of time to do. And I realized that I could get at it the same way by streamlining it a little bit, which is what I shared with you today. That's my streamlined process. So
I think we have one more question, and it's a really good one. What happens when you measure and results are not positive? What do you do?
Adalia, that is a great question, because this has happened before. And if you start doing this, it's going to happen to you too. So be prepared. What that really means, though, is you just need to go back and take another look. What did you miss? So are there external factors that are contributing to the business results. Maybe you're in 2020 and there's a pandemic, right? And that had an impact on the business metrics. Maybe, I mean, it could be anything. It could be that what your SME or stakeholders told you they needed to learn wasn't everything or wasn't exactly right. So I would just go back and kind of do some more analysis and then come back with a proposal and say, hey, this is an iterative process. It's not going to have an immediate impact. I'd like to try something different and pilot it again, and let's keep tracking. It's a continuous process until we get right back on board. Or again, if you uncover and figure out that it's an external factor that can't be solved by training or a learning intervention, then you could still make a recommendation to that correct business partner and say, in addition to training, like the server example of all of a sudden our food servers are going to be so happy because they have orientation. Well, there may also be another underlying issue. So I might have talked to the food servers and found out that they don't feel like they're getting paid enough because they can get more money over here at the next place. Well, I might bring that feedback to the talent acquisition team or to an HR team and say, hey, FYI, I learned this. I think this may be another factor that's standing in the way of them staying and being satisfied in their role. So I hope that answered your question, Adalia. But if that's a great one, like that could happen.
Definitely. Thanks so much. I thought, Ethel, did you have a question? Somebody had a question and I saw it disappeared. Whoever that was, please put your question back if you'd like to have it answered. And if you don't want to ask it in front of the group, come join Jennifer at a table. We'll go ahead and wrap if there aren't any more questions. A couple of things I want to mention before you leave today. First, I want to make sure everyone found the lounge. Does everyone know where to find the lounge? Grab a thumb up or another reaction if you know exactly where to find the lounge. Okay, I got a couple thumbs up. If you haven't found it yet, when you go back to your main page, it is a tab right next to reception. So just look for Jennifer there. She can grab a table. And however long you can hang out, Jennifer, that would be awesome. I'm sure people have a lot that they want to unpack after your session. Let's see. Did we get the question back? Oh, how do we get the slides?
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Again, I will post the slides if you want them in that feed icon at the top of this page. So thank you, everyone. Good luck. And please connect with me on LinkedIn and we can keep talking about evaluating learning impact.
Definitely. Thanks, everyone, for a great session. The recordings will definitely be available, so stay tuned. We'll make sure you get those, Kendra, okay? All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon. We got a break between sessions here. Next one is at 4 p.m. my time, which is Mountain Time. So 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Stay tuned. We'll see you later at the next one if you can attend. And otherwise, we'll catch you on the recording. Have a great afternoon, everybody.